Good morning, everyone, from a rather chilly day in Canada. It is my pleasure on behalf of the DeGroote School of Business to welcome you to this webinar. I will introduce Elizabeth Long and Zia Sumar. They are both with Mangoji Immigration Law Group. Some of you may have been on an immigration webinar we hosted on behalf of DeGroote a couple of weeks ago, and we realized that during these highly unusual times, there were quite a few additional questions that we may have not been able to answer. So I am thrilled that Elizabeth and Zia are able to join us today to offer some additional advice and expertise on the study permit process. This webinar today is geared directly to our incoming MBA and MPhil students, so welcome. I would ask you if you have questions that you can share them through the chat or the Q&A function, and they will be answered throughout the webinar. Elizabeth will begin with a brief presentation, and then we will open it up to a more holistic Q&A. If you have very specific individual or program-specific questions about your start in the program, again, I would remind you that you can always reach out to recruitment and program staff through your individual program offices. So with that, again, thank you so much. Welcome, everybody. I'm glad you were able to join us today, and I will turn it over to Elizabeth.
Well, thank you so much, Lisa. Great to be here with you guys. So Zia has been doing these webinars with me for a while. And what we like to do is we have a process where I'll start by doing a PowerPoint presentation for you guys. And Zia will be in the background answering questions. So here's how it works. You will see on your screen something like this, where there's a Q&A button on the bottom here. If you click on that button, you can pose your questions on there. Zia will be in the background answering the immigration questions. If you have academic questions, you can save them until later on, because at the end of my presentation, Zia will be posting these questions to myself and Lisa, and we'll be answering these questions for you at the end. Okay? Okay, so let's start with the basics. What exactly is a study permit? Why are you applying for the study permit? First of all, if you are going to be studying inside Canada in a program of over 6 months, it's what is required for you to do so, okay? Not all universities, well, universities in Canada for most part, all public, but not all colleges, qualify for study permit. So they have to be on a list of DLIs, designated learning institutions, to qualify for a study permit. McMaster DeGroote, of course, is on that. And also, not all DLIs qualify for a postgrad work permit afterwards, that open work permit that allows many students who graduate on a path towards permanent residence. Only public colleges and universities in Canada will allow you to do that. Your program at DeGroote will allow you to obtain a postgrad work permit afterwards. Also, a lot of people get mixed up between study permits and student visas. A visa does not allow you to study in Canada. A visa is something that is put on your passport for certain people from certain countries. So if you are from a visa requiring country, you need a visa put on your passport in order to enter Canada. If you're from a country that does not require a visa, if you're a national of a country that does not require a visa, you will have to apply for ETA. But everyone who wants to study in a program of 6 months or more will need a study permit. Now, if you are applying for your first study permit and you are from a country that requires a visa, both of these will be issued at the same time. So your visa will normally be issued for the same amount of time as your study permit, or around the same amount of time as your study permit. And then if you needed to travel outside of Canada and the US, there's a special exemption if you're going to be traveling only to the US, that you will need a visa otherwise to return to Canada. Okay, so visas are for traveling, study permits are for you to study in Canada. So let's talk about what is required for a study permit. There are basic elements that everyone needs to convince an officer, whether you're going through the regular program or an SDS program, you need to convince the officer that these are the elements that you need to show them. So first of all, you need to be accepted into a designated learning institution. If you've been accepted into McMaster DeGroote program, there you go. That's number one. You need to show that you really intend to study. We even though it's not necessarily on the list of required documents for SDS, we still recommend that our clients always provide a study plan as to why it is that you want to study in this program and how it is that it's going to further your career choices and your career goals. You need to show that you have your funds to study. So if you're doing SDS, then you pay your tuition and you get the GIC. Okay. Otherwise, you can show that you have people. If you're not doing SDS, you can show that you have other means to pay. You have, savings. You have other people who will be supporting you, etc. You need to show that you have those funds. And the last one, it's the most ambiguous, I would say, but it is probably one of the main reasons why study permits are rejected. They usually say on a rejection letter that they don't believe that you will leave Canada when required. So people often get confused with intent to reside permanently in Canada. You can have dual intent when you come to Canada. You can have the intent to study, and also you may want to apply for permanent residence afterwards. However, what the officers at the visa posts often want to see is that you have a track record of obeying laws, whether you've been in Canada or not, or if you have traveled to other countries before. So it's good if you have traveled to other countries to show that you have traveled to other countries, show that you have had visas to other countries, you've studied in other countries, you worked in other countries, and you have always followed the laws in other countries. If you haven't, if you have overstayed, if you had a rejection of a visa to another country, the forms are very specific and they ask you, have you been rejected to a visa to somewhere else? If you have, you should say yes. Otherwise, it's misrepresentation. And if, for example, Canada and the US, they share information, and if someone has been to the US or has had a visa rejected in the US, the Canadian officials will know. And if they know and you say, no, I have not been rejected, and actually you have been rejected, then that would figure very, very badly into your application. They won't believe you, and that's a credibility issue. Okay, so having a good track record, filling out your forms properly, showing that you have ties to your country. You have a job back in your country. You have a reason to return. You're not desperate to come to Canada, is also very good in your application as well. Okay, so let's talk about the application process. Right now, during COVID, you can't go directly to the visa application centers to do paper submissions. Apply online, okay? Complete your medicals if necessary. Now, how medicals work is you have to have lived, it's not nationality, it depends on where you have lived. So if you have lived for over 6 months in the last year in a country that requires medicals, then you will have to do your medicals. You'll have to complete your biometrics. And if you've already done this once for Canada, then you don't need to do it again. But if you haven't yet, then after you submit your application, there will be a form asking you to go and do your biometrics. You'll need to submit your passport if you need a visa. Okay, if you don't need a visa, you don't need to submit your passport afterwards. And after you get your study permit approval, you'll get a letter that's in your profile, online profile, and you'll take that letter, or it might be emailed to you. Most of the time it's on your profile. You take that letter, you'll take your passport with your visa in it, and when you get to the border, you're going to go to the officer, the customs officer at the border, and the customs officer will say, well, what are you doing in Canada? You're going to say, well, I'm here to study and I have a study permit approval. And then at that time, they will print out your study permit. And there you go. There you have your study permit. Okay? So all this is great, but what happens during COVID? If you can't go and do your medicals, you can't, the visa application centers may be closed, you can't do your biometrics, you can't submit your passport. Well, right now, it depends on the area. The visa application centers, the VACs, are the third-party centers that are opened not by Immigration Canada, but they're third parties. But Immigration Canada has contracted with them to help collect documents and complete biometrics, okay? Depending on the area where you are, for example, China right now, a lot of them are opening up slowly. Even though they won't take your physical documents, you have to apply online. You may be able to submit your passport by sending it in, okay? Other places, they may be closed, and maybe after a while, they may be open. So you can submit your online application and all of these other documents. If you can't submit it within the 30-day period that the letter says, there is automatic extensions now up to 90 days provided for your biometrics, medicals, and passport submissions. So don't worry about that. So you can submit your online, keep it in place. If you think about, even though it's online, it's still kind of like a lineup. The officers get to, it's first come, first serve. The officers get to whoever has submitted your online profile first, right? Your online application first. So you can submit it and keep it in line. And then afterwards, if you need to complete the rest of the documents, when the VACs open and when the doctors, then do the medicals, then you can submit them afterwards, okay? Now, with SDS, it does have a requirement for for medicals to be done before you submit it, right? However, one of the big advantages normally to SDS is that it's processed quite fast. If, however, everybody waits to submit their study permits until after they can get medicals in India, for example, and then the system can get quite glutted. And it could be that the SDS may take longer than normal applications. So, you could just submit your application, even if you don't have all your medicals done, submit your application, keep it in line, and then when you have your medicals, you can put them in afterwards, okay? it's a suggestion. It's not for sure who's going to be processed faster at the end, but it's a strategy that you might want to consider. Okay, so with regard to family members, if you have a company spouse who is in Canada, they can also qualify for open work permits. So spouses are anyone you're married to. It also includes common law. So if you are have been living together with your partner for at least a year, you can prove it, okay? Then they can qualify as common law, and they can also get a work permit. Children can go to public school up to grade 12, up to end of high school for free as well, if you're a student, okay? All right, let's talk about working while you are studying. First of all, in order to work while you are studying, you have to be a full-time student. The only exception is in the last semester of school. So sometimes, you might need one more course just to complete your studies. Immigration recognizes this, and so for the last semester, they do allow you to work full-time. And you can, even though you are in your, even if it is just one course, if you're more than, if you're full-time in the last semester, you wouldn't be able to work full-time in the last semester. But you can, of course, be a student in that time. Now, when you're talking about working while you're studying, it's important to differentiate between what immigration allows you and what the academic programs, the schools, allow you, because the schools for grad students like yourselves, they also have their limits because they want you to succeed academically. So I believe at McMaster for grad students, it's 10 hours while you are studying and attending classes. The immigration allows you to work full-time on campus. Off campus, they allow you to work 20 hours while taking classes and 40 hours during scheduled breaks. So scheduled breaks are whatever is on the academic calendar. So for example, I believe for MBA students, you may get a summer break, right? So during that time, you can work full-time. But, and the school does allow you to work full-time if you're not taking classes. But when you are taking classes, immigration allows you to work 20 hours off campus, but the school limits you to working 10 hours. Now, a lot of people may be asking about co-op work permits. What are co-op work permits? Co-op work permits are work permits that allow you to work in a work program that is part of your education program. So the program has to be something that is required as part of your education, okay? Normally they're called co-ops in Canada, okay? So if your work is something that you just want to do on your own, you don't need a co-op work permit for that. You don't need any work permits, but you are limited to the number of hours that we've just talked about, okay? But if you need to work in a co-op program, that program requires you to work full-time off campus, okay? And it's part of your studies, then you must apply for the co-op work permit. We highly advise you actually to apply for your co-op work permit when you are applying for your study permit, okay? Someone had asked, would it be likely that the co-op work permit is rejected and the study permit is not rejected? That's highly unlikely. The co-op work permit is normally issued if they feel like you're going to be a full-time genuine student and they want to issue you the study permit, then the co-op work permit should be issued as well. Do it together because it's a pain in the neck afterwards if you forget to do the co-op work permit and you have to wait for the work permit to be issued before you start your program, okay? Because right now, the work permits in Canada can take a very, very long time, especially because of COVID, okay? So if you have a co-op program and the school tells you you have a co-op program as a required part of your studies, apply for both of them at the same time. You can't work before you start your program. So until, like I said, the first point, if you are a full-time student, you can work. If you're not a full-time student, you can't work at all. Part-time, full-time, at all, okay? If you come to Canada earlier than the start of your program, great. You just can't start working until you start your program. Similarly, when your program ends, okay, when your program ends, you cannot work at all, part-time, full-time, anytime, okay? However, you can start working again once you've applied for your postgrad work permit when you graduate. I'm not going to go into that today. We do have another program with DeGroote for students who are currently studying in Canada to talk about what happens after you graduate with postgrad work permits and PRs, and that's going to take place on Thursday, okay? Okay. Let me go through a timeline for what I would suggest that you guys think about doing, okay? So first of all, you gotta collect your documents. You gotta collect your financial documents, your GICs, your bank statements if you're not doing the SDS, pay for your tuition, get the acceptance letter from the school, right? Write your study plan, right? Do all of collect all of your documents for your study permit and your co-op work permit if it's applicable. With regard to medicals, if you can do the medicals, go do them, right? And then you can apply for your SDS if it's available for yourself. If they're not available, you can consider submitting your application anyway, and then doing your medicals afterwards. Just keeping your place in line and doing your medicals afterwards. When you submit your application, and if you will get a request for your biometrics, go do your biometrics when you can. When the VACs are open, go and do your biometrics, okay? And and then if your application is approved, then they'll ask you to submit your passport. Do that as soon as you can when the VACs are open. Now, when can you travel to Canada? You can travel to Canada when you're allowed to travel to Canada. So with COVID, there is currently a travel ban that's supposed to last until June 30th. We haven't heard yet if this will be extended or not, so stay tuned. We do have a COVID update page on our website, so feel free, I'll put the link up a little bit later, and so feel free to visit that. But right now, the travel ban is only until June 30th. So if you apply and you get your study permit, if there is no travel ban, then you can then travel to Canada. If you never know what happens, it could be that, you know, the school semester in the fall starts with classes online. You can do them. You don't have to travel to Canada to do these classes online. You can do them at home, and then you can travel to Canada afterwards when you get your study permit and when the travel ban allows. I just wanted to have a note here that if your application is rejected, contact a lawyer right away, okay? In order to file an appeal for your application, there's a cutoff time. There's a deadline of 60 days from the date of rejection. Now, currently the federal court is closed, but, you know, so they're a little bit relaxed on the notice period. However, you know, when they open, the notice period is very, very strictly adhered to. Not only that, it takes time. Sometimes maybe we might not go to federal court, we may need to resubmit your application with stronger documents, etc. But it takes time to get a copy of your file, to understand, what's happening, to collect the documents. So my view is normally to try to apply early, and if it is rejected, to look at the application and file right away in order for you guys to have the chance to make it for the start date of your program. Okay, so that's basically it for my PowerPoint presentation. I've put here our contact information. If you have any questions, we're happy to do a personal consultation with you, and we do offer discounted rates for people who have come from DeGroote as well. Feel free to contact us here. I've put our update COVID-19 page on the bottom there. Feel free to visit that website as well. Social media, we're always posting new updates. Okay. All right. So Zia and Lisa, let's open it up to some questions here.
Perfect. So we've gotten some great questions. First one to do with COVID. If biometric centers are still not open within the 90 days, what happens then? What does a student do? What if it's other documents that they can't provide?
So whatever it is that you cannot provide, put an explanation in there. If it is something, for example, that the biometrics, you still aren't able to get it after the 90 days, you can always ask for an extension. The immigration right now is quite understanding with regard to these COVID-related delays. There is the immigration has a web form that you can submit updates to your application on, so you can put it there. And so don't worry too much about your documents in terms of your biometrics and your medicals and passports. Other documents, just put an explanation when you're talking there. You can always update it afterwards. Okay.
Perfect. And then if a program requires a co-op work permit, can we apply for the study permit first and then apply for the co-op work permit later? Does it have to be applied for together?
You don't have to apply for both of them at the same time, but it's highly recommended. There's no harm in applying for a co-op work permit. You don't even have to pay an extra fee to apply for the co-op work permit, but it is certainly a pain in the neck, like I said, if you don't have the co-op work permit, because let's say you want to start your program after 3 months or 4 months, okay? It can take in Canada in the normal period of time, 3 to 4 months to process a work permit. During COVID, when processing times are slowed down, it can take maybe half a year or more so it could be that if you don't apply for your co-op program work permit together with your study permit, that you may not be able to start working in your co-op program when you need to, because you don't have the work permit. It's taking too long to apply afterwards. So highly, highly recommend applying for both of them together if you can.
And you mentioned that a spouse can come as a dependent on that study permit. Do you recommend applying together? Do you recommend applying separately? How does one go about doing that?
So that is more of an individual decision as to do that. If your spouse wants to accompany you, if your family wants to accompany you, it's very important for you to show that you have enough funds to have your family live in Canada. Okay, so it's more than the GIC and the tuition, right? You have to show that they will have enough funds. You have enough savings for them to live off. And that, it's always afterwards as well.
Okay. And the next question is, again, going back to the co-op work permit. When you're applying for that with the study permit, is it a separate application altogether? Do you apply for it together? How does that work?
I believe you apply for both of them together, right, Sia? That's
Yeah.
what we've always been doing, just submit both of them together online.
If we're talking about applying through the student direct stream, for example, and let's say right now, because we can't get medicals, because we can't get IELTS tests done, can we still apply through the student direct stream, or will we need to apply through the regular stream?
That's a good question. So normally SDS says you have to do your medicals beforehand. The regular stream, the difference between the regular stream and SDS are two things. One is the SDS for the financials allows you to just get the GIC and the pay the first year tuition just to to qualify, right? Regular stream allows you to do other things to qualify. You can show that you have savings. You can show, of course, you can do, SDS financials, and that's good, right? But it does allow you to do other things. And the other thing for SDS that's an advantage, though, is that it is the faster processing time. Now, that right now is a little bit debatable. If there isn't that many people applying for the regular stream right now, then your application might very well be processed faster if you submit your application now than if you wait until you can do your medicals. If you can do your medicals, other people can do their medicals. And all of a sudden there's a huge rush and everyone sort of gluts the system. Well, then, there are only so many officers who can assess an application. So it could very well be that afterwards, if you, wait until after you can do your medicals, it could be, I'm not saying for sure, it could be that the SDS applications are slowed down in the end.
And Elizabeth, when you're talking about the language test, right, is TOEFL, for example, accepted, or is it only IELTS?
So for SDS, it's IELTS that is accepted. TOEFL, if you're doing a regular stream, you don't even need necessarily to submit your English exam. As long as the school accepts it, that's fine. But for SDS, they're looking at IELTS.
Okay. Just looking through here, seeing what else we have. And can you go over again what you recommend if the study permit is refused?
If your study permit is refused, contact a lawyer. Oftentimes when someone comes to us and their study permit, so when your study permit is rejected, it's a black mark on your application. The next time, if you apply again, the next officer is going to look at the rejection, and if nothing has changed, they might very well reject it again, okay? So I think there was a saying somewhere that the definition of insanity is to do the same thing over and over again. Okay, so don't do that, okay? If your application is rejected, you got to figure out why it was rejected. The refusal letter is normally not it won't tell you exactly why. It's just a standard form refusal letter. So there's two ways to know why you're rejected. One way is to file a notice to the federal court. And by filing the notice, the federal court then requires the government to provide you with the reasons for your rejection. Okay, and if the reasons for your rejection are really bad, then you can move forward with your federal court case. And oftentimes, the lawyers for the government may concede, and they may, they may say, okay, another officer will take a look at your application. You can submit more documents. If you're beyond the time for federal court, then we would have to do an ATIP. And it can take normally 30 to 60 days, but oftentimes it can take, up to a year even to get those reasons. And then once we have those reasons, then we submit the application. That's what I prefer to do. If time does not allow us to get the reasons, then we can make educated guesses as to why the application is rejected. But the chances of getting an application approved is a lot lower because we're kind of going in blind and we're not really understanding why your application was rejected in the first place.
And Elizabeth, how does one stay up to date with all these changes for COVID, right? Because we know that everything's happening all the time,
Yes, so the IRCC, they do have some update pages. You can go on their website and look at that. Sometimes it's hard to get all the information together from different places. So we do have a COVID update page here. And I believe DeGroote is also, for academic questions and stuff, always contact DeGroote. Lisa.
I just want to assure students, please know that like you, we do not know what the future holds, but we are working very closely with the Ontario government, the federal government, and our local public health agencies to understand what our options are for fall. I am meeting with the dean and all the associate deans regularly, multiple times each week. We are starting to look at contingency planning for the fall, as is the MFIN program with Susan and Dr. Chamberlain. So it's really important that we will send updates as soon as we can share information via the email that you registered or applied with. So please keep checking those notices, keep reading your emails. They're going to start including very vital information that's going to give you your options. We're all in this together. We want you to join our programs this fall. We're going to try to be as flexible as possible to make sure you all have a fantastic experience at DeGroote.
Okay, great. Any other questions, Zia?
Those were the ones that we got asked the most frequently.
Okay, fantastic. So if you wanted to, so I guess we'll end our presentation part here. Thank you guys all for joining. And we will stay on to answer more questions on the Q&A. Zia and I, if you have more questions on there, feel free to write it on there. Lisa, did you wanted to say anything from the school?
No, just again, I want to thank Elizabeth and Zia for sharing their expertise today. I appreciate all of the questions and the dialogue. I think there's a lot of unknowns right now, so I want to make sure everyone's practicing good self-care. I think Elizabeth has given you excellent advice. What I'm hearing is apply as soon as you can. Get your documents together, get your application started. I know some of you are in unique situations where you're waiting for very specific things, but it sounds like getting in the queue is the best approach. We don't know what the federal government will or will not do in terms of managing wait times, but please know that the consortium of universities across Canada are actively working with our federal government to remind our federal government about the importance of our international students, both those currently in our programs, as well as those planning on joining us this fall. And again, please keep reading the emails that we send you because it's going to start including very important updates about fall contingencies. All I can share right now is we are working on a model to be back on campus for the fall, but we don't know for sure if that's going to be safe. We will not do anything that puts our students or our staff and faculty's health at risk. So we're going to be working with public health agencies very closely. And if we do need to move online, please understand that this does not mean you're going to be joining an online program. It's just a stopgap measure to allow you to get that extra little bit of time to either complete your study permit process or once travel restrictions are lifted, get here safely. So I hope that everyone stays really open to that option as well. I know the reason you've chosen DeGroote and Canada is because you want to be here, and we want to be you to be here, and we want to meet you and get to know you. So please know that contingencies like that are just short term to give you some flexibility. Elizabeth, one question I've seen a little bit in the chat, if you could just address, is can you begin the program online if you're still in the process of obtaining your study permit?
Right. So if you are outside of Canada, the government on the immigration laws does not control you. As such, you don't necessarily need a study permit to start studying online if you're outside of Canada. To come to Canada, though, to do the program, you should have your study permit, and along with it will be your visa. So if the school is going to allow studying online in the beginning, you can certainly do that from wherever you are.
Yeah, and I will note there's a few questions around deferrals, which of course Elizabeth and cannot address, but what I would say is if there's reasons why you are specifically wanting to consider deferring your offer of admission, we'd like those to be one-on-one conversations with our program staff. So please, stick with us. We're sticking with you. We really want to launch strong in the fall. But if there's a situation beyond your control, that means you cannot start online and that you cannot, attend classes when you are able to in Canada this coming year, please have those one-on-one conversations with program staff.
Okay. All right. Thanks so much, guys. Stay safe and stay healthy.
Thank you so much again, both of you, for your expertise.
Thank you.
Take care, guys.